And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another live from the IBD Hub. I'm Julia Demaro, the founder of the IBD company and the IBD Hub. And today we have the beautiful Aisha coming to us, and we are going to discuss a really great topic: Black Muslim women breaking barriers in the field of architecture. And I would like to introduce to you to Aisha Janki Akinola. Hi, Aisha. How are you?
Hi, Aisha Janki Akinola. Nice.
Aisha Janki.
Yeah, it's pronounced Janki, but
Sorry.
that's it's fine. It's probably your first time pronouncing that word. But it's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to having these uncomfortable conversations that needs to be had.
Of course, we do, indeed. Do you want to introduce a little bit yourself and tell people what you are up to and what you are studying and what,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Sure.
tell me.
Like you said, my name is Aisha Janki. I am a third year architecture student at the University of Edinburgh, which is in Scotland. And I'm originally from Nigeria. I moved from Nigeria to come and study here because I'm passionate about architecture and I really wanted to immerse myself in actually like learning about the history and just how to be the best possible architect that I can be. And the first step in actually achieving that is getting an education. So um, here I am trying to do
Yeah.
that. I was also recently elected as the vice president welfare of my university. I will start working on that job come May. So that's
Hmm.
very exciting. I would have to take a gap year and actually work full time and try to
Oh,
make an
wow.
impact, trying to make change and all that good stuff. And it's important to note that I'm actually the first Muslim in the whole of my university's history to be elected for that for a sabbatical role in general. And I'm
Okay.
also the first woman, no, the first Black woman for that role in the whole, like in the history of my university. So I
Yeah.
think I'm just trying as much as I can to try to be that change that I want to see in the world by being a role model, and by just trying to live a long lasting legacy, which hopefully other people who look like me can follow because they feel represented, they feel seen, and they feel heard as well. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. Tell us a little bit more about your story. How did you get here? How
Mm.
did you? I know that you had different stages in your life to get where you are today. So I would love to hear about that and really understand what made you the person that you are now with the mission that you
Mm-hmm.
have.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So I think, right. So I was born and brought up in Sokoto State, which is in northern Nigeria,
mhm.
which is in West Africa, right?
Yeah.
And I think when I was younger, I never really thought too much about my identity or the way I looked and the way I was perceived, because that wasn't really a big deal, because it was kind of like it was like a pretty much level playing field. Like I I was never I didn't have to identify as a Black person, or
Sure.
I didn't have to like call myself these names because it didn't matter that
Yeah.
much. Um, and yeah, I was just like any child. I was probably like different, and I was probably called weird or strange many times. I was probably called a nerd as well. And if anyone tries to call me that, like now that I'm older, I'm gonna be like, no, I'm not a nerd. I am smart. Um, but like during high school and stuff, like I was actually the only female in my high school, called Federal Government College Sokoto. I was the only female that took a course, that took a subject which is called technical drawing, which will then
Mhm.
allow me to proceed into university and actually take on architecture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, like, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to design buildings. I knew that I wanted to do architecture and stuff. Um, so that kind of really helped me just go in a kind of a linear kind of manner. Obviously, there were bumps on the way and things, but I kind of knew where I was headed. And so I finished high school in Sokoto State, and then luckily for me, my very lovely teacher told me about this opportunity to go to Ghana for a year and study my A levels, which would then
Yeah.
allow me to potentially apply for universities outside of Nigeria, which is something that I always wanted. Fun fact, I was like, I want to go to Cambridge University.
Yeah.
It's still on my to-do list, but I didn't go to Cambridge. I ended up coming to Edinburgh, which is also a lovely university, and it's got its differences. You know, it's not as diverse as Cambridge is, which is a bit of a shame. But that then means that there's like different sets of challenges that I'm able to overcome and learn
Sure.
from. So whilst I was in Ghana studying for my A levels at the African Science Academy, I was able to meet 22 other young girls from across the
Oh wow.
African continent who were passionate about making change, who were passionate about studying a career in STEM, regardless of the fact that it's a male dominated industry. So that was where I was able to find my voice and just like get to meet people like doing amazing things as well. We had guest speakers from across the world come visit us and like talk to us, tell us their story, give us a chance to ask any questions that we have.
Yeah.
Whilst I was in Ghana as well, I got to figure out that I'm actually a poet, because I was able to write a poem called An African Woman, which was
Wow.
powerful. It was featured on CNN. And that then made me to actually realize, oh, I could actually be a poet as well. If architecture decided to misbehave, I'll switch to being a poet. um, yeah, but my time at the African Science Academy wasn't the easiest. I was the youngest. I was 15 years old when I started, and I was young. Everyone was like 20, 21, like 19, 18. I'm just
Yeah.
out here with my 15-year-old brain trying to, study A-level maths for the maths and physics. But that prepared me for life after ASA, because when
Yeah.
I came to the University of Edinburgh afterwards, I was then able to move on to being in a global environment. So I basically went from local
Yeah.
to global and then to international, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So from
Yeah.
Sokoto to Ghana in an international university, like in a kind of diverse university. No, it's actually local, international, global.
International, global.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, local, international, global.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of like what made things kind of easier for me, because I had that background. I was kind of able to just
Transition.
build up on things. But coming to Edinburgh University, it's been interesting, so many challenges along the line. But I feel like now that I am in my third year, I'm kind of much wiser than I used to be when I started out. And that's just life in general. Like, you basically grow, and provided you've got that growth mindset and that willingness to learn and that sense of reflection over, like, okay, so what did I do wrongly there? Like, why did this not go
Sure.
wrong? What can I do differently moving forward? You find that it's much easier for you to just like progress and achieve bigger things in life. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was probably too long. But
No,
I'm gonna
it's
stop
great. I mean,
because I
I
know you
think
have
it's
more
important.
questions.
No, it's important to set the context for everyone so that they can really understand where you're coming from and where your passion for doing what you're doing comes from
Mm-hmm.
as well. So, and you went from feeling like like everybody else to slowly you had the first barrier was like, okay, I'm the only woman in the class, and then you went now to a more global environment, like you said, where there is maybe some barriers. Well, there is barriers according to your skin and your religion, which is another
Mm-hmm.
two things that added up. So I can imagine that, you know, um, when you were small, you probably didn't imagine that this was going to be a case, right? Like I grew up in Africa. I grew up in Gabon,
Gabon.
and I was the only white girl in my class, so people were like, calling me white girl and so on. So, and then I changed context where, I came back to Europe, and then all of a sudden I was normal to everyone, and that for me was weird. I did it on the opposite side, right? So tell me a little bit more about your experience going through those stages, like what affected you the most, out of these
Mm-hmm.
factors.
So I remember a conversation that I had with my parents, like leading up to when I would actually go to the airport and then say bye bye and leave Nigeria for
Yeah.
good or for worse. Um, and they basically said, Aisha, like, you're basically Nigerian, okay? And people tend to have this bad notion about Nigerians because of what the media says about us, that we are 419, we are tricksters, blah, blah, blah. And secondly, you are a Muslim and you wear the head covering.
Yeah.
And from the media, we know that there is such thing as Islamophobia, and there's that you have to worry about. And
Yeah.
lastly, you are black, right? So no, actually, lastly, I am a woman because
Yeah.
I am black because I'm Nigerian. So that's already covered. And I think telling that to a 19-year-old who's just about no, I wasn't 19 then. I was 16 years old when they were telling me that. I was after Ghana, right? Telling that to a 16-year-old who's just about to go into this world that she has never been to, she has never experienced. I think that definitely took a great deal of, like, my parents had no choice but to tell me, but to make me actually see what I'm actually getting myself into. And
Yeah.
I think it braced me for what was to come, because I kind of knew, okay, this is what it is. I'm no longer just Aisha. I'm now Aisha, but I'm also all of this thing that people see when they meet me for the first time. And I might have different experiences because of that, which I have no
Mm.
control over, unfortunately.
Sure.
Fortunately, actually. Um, but coming to Edinburgh, I think the first thing that I noticed was the fact that because I was kind of like excited, I was like really looking forward to it. I was looking forward to
Yeah.
meeting people, meeting people from like across the globe and across the world, from different continents as well. I wasn't too worried about it. Like, I guess I wasn't paying too much attention to those things, because I
Mm.
would like walk up to anyone and I would be like,
Yeah.
"Hi, nice to meet you. Do you also study
Yeah.
architecture? Can we be friends?" Because I was young and I was probably naive. I wasn't thinking too much about things. But
Yeah.
I guess as I grew older and as time went by, I got to notice the little things, like the microaggressions, like
Mm.
the way my experience of like learning in architecture school was different, because I didn't necessarily have the kind of background that students who went to the UK
Mm.
before coming to Edinburgh University had, right? Because I had a mathsy background. Okay, I did my technical drawing in high school, but I took a gap and I went to Ghana and I was doing more maths and
Yeah.
science stuff. So now coming to Edinburgh University, which teaches architecture in a kind of artsy kind of way, I needed
Mm-hmm.
to play catch up. So like the first year, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to get my head around everything that was going on, trying to find my place really.
Yeah.
But with 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 all of that, and with my, I guess, stubbornness, or would you call it resilience,
Yeah. I think so.
all of the negative experiences that I had, I was kind of able to find hope in them and find a sense of purpose, because I knew that for me to actually change the way people view people like me, right? I
Mm-hmm.
need to actually have a conversation with them.
Sure.
I need to be friends with them. Not like I don't force people to be friends with them, but I need to show them that we aren't actually what the media tries to portray us to be. We're
Yeah.
just normal people. I I also eat cereal for breakfast, like I'm also human.
I love it. But could
Yeah.
you give some examples of microaggressions so that some people can really understand
Mm-hmm,
what that
mm-hmm.
means? Because I think that a lot of people don't even realize them.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear some examples that you feel comfortable to
Yeah.
give.
I think trying to bring this back to like the whole topic of the field of architecture, like in my architecture school, right? I mean, they claim to be diverse, but they're not very diverse because there wasn't any black tutor, and I need to see a black tutor before I can agree that you're diverse.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
um,
yeah. I agree.
but
I agree.
basically, there would be cases where I'm trying to explain a project that I'm working on, and there'll be comments about, oh, like it's ghetto, or it's like, because obviously I'm black, I'm going to be talking about things that affect people who I can relate with, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there there will be times when I'm kind of made to feel as if my ideas aren't good enough because it's different or something.
mm,
That, and also like experiences when it comes to just in interacting with students in general, and trying to like relate with students, just be a normal student as well, and you get of the back comments, like I can't really remember because I don't pay too much attention to these things, and
sure.
I don't keep a list of things that they've been saying to me, but you just get the body language, and also the fact that you're kind of made to feel like, I don't know how to put it. I can't put it into words, but yeah.
We have a question here from my
Yeah.
mom, actually. Hi, mom.
Oh, hi, mom. Your
How
mom is
was
on social media.
I know.
Wow.
So she asked, how was women's attitude related to your skin and religions compared to men? Do they accept you easier in the architecture
Mm,
field?
that's an interesting question. Um, I think I was probably more comfortable around the women than I was around the men, because we've got that one thing that we could relate with. There was kind of something
Yeah.
we could build up upon. Um, but I don't think there was much of a difference. I think it depends on the person and where that person is from and what sort of experiences that person has had when it comes to interacting with people from a diverse background. My
Yeah.
university is very elite, and there's actually an entire organization that was founded called Tackling Elitism at my university, because it's an endemic that needs to be
Yeah.
tackled ASAP, as soon as possible. Um, but I don't think that gender is necessarily a factor when it comes to how people get treated. I
Mm,
think it just depends on the individual, really.
yeah. Yeah. I agree. Thank you, mom, for this question. There's a
Yeah,
lot of people saying,
someone
um,
actually commented and said, Ramadan Mubarak. I just want to respond to that
yeah.
really quickly. Ramadan Mubarak, Jazakallah Khaira. May Allah accept our fasting as an act of ibadah. And yeah, hi from wherever you are, Mustafa Raji.
And then I see Adewale from last week. He's asking, which country are you based in?
I am currently studying in Edinburgh, Scotland, which is in the United Kingdom, but I'm from
Yeah.
Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Ademola is definitely a Nigerian. Baoni.
Yes,
A
yes. You should.
castle. No. A crawl. Well, it depends on which time zone you're calling from, really. But hi.
But yeah, for me, I really appreciate you coming here to talk about this difficult topic, because I think that we don't speak about it enough,
Mm-hmm.
especially in our field, which is
Yeah.
very
Mm-hmm.
institutionalized and very much men-led and white men-led as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you think we can do better in our field?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you
To
think we can improve things in order to accept all kind of minorities and
mm,
integrate them and hire them and give them a career path?
mm. I can go on and on about many things that the architecture field needs to do, like as soon as possible. I think like the first thing that comes to mind is the the people of color that have managed to come into the people of color and the women of color that have managed to come into this field in the first place. What is the industry currently doing to make sure that their needs is met, such that they don't have too much complaint, and such that other people who are younger and are looking up to these people feel like, oh yeah, I've seen Aisha do it, and she's talking about how amazing her experience is. I also want to do that, because
Yeah.
that's the first thing that makes it harder for young people to even consider coming into this field in the first place. It just so happens that I'm stubborn, and that when I see trouble,
Yeah.
I
You're
I
going
I
at it.
when I see challenges, I'm like, yes, let's go, let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Or especially when people tell me you can't do that because you're Muslim and you're a woman and you basically need to get married at some point and you cannot be wearing helmets and going to sites. Like, really? Watch me do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But that's not the case with everyone. And even though I claim that I like challenges, I don't like to I don't like stress. I don't want to be stressed. I want to live a peaceful life. I like my peace. And the fact that I constantly have to talk about this, and I don't like having to complain either. So
Yeah.
basically, long and short of the story is the architecture field in general needs to do better when it comes to retaining the people of from minority backgrounds that are already there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing that I think is very important is going into schools, or like trying to do outreach kind of work to catch them young, to basically,
Mm.
talk to young people who have considered being an architect but who don't really know what it's like being an architect. Because I've spoken to many people and I've told them, oh yeah, I study architecture, and they go, oh yeah, I wanted to do that at some points, but they didn't
Mm.
do that because
Yeah.
of many reasons, really. There is firstly the fact that the education system is just like unnecessarily long, um and also the fact that it's so demanding, and it's so mentally draining. Like, architecture school, it's so crazy, and you're
Yeah.
just expected to do so much, and
Yeah.
you're overworked sometimes. And after architecture school as well, I basically heard people talk about how even whilst working, they're expected to work extra hours.
Yeah.
I'm here like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big
and
problem within the field. Yeah.
also they pay you peanuts. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to put it so bluntly, But why am I getting paid?
Yeah,
Why
I agree.
why am I not paid above the real living wage?
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
designing buildings. Like,
I know, but that's a very big problem. A couple of weeks ago, we had as guests the founders of the podcast One to 100,
mhm,
and it's a podcast that was founded by 7 women of color,
mhm,
and the theme was why are women misrepresented within the architecture field. And we also try to touch upon the minority problem as well.
mhm,
And one of the things that were said, and I think is also important to acknowledge, is that architecture is a course that is expensive because it's very long, and also you have to make many models and print a lot of things that cost a lot of money. So the accessibility of that course is reduced to the ones that can afford it, or the ones that have that are a little bit special to get a bursary and have that paid, let's say.
yeah, yeah.
And that is an extremely big problem also because at the end of it, you're not sure that you're going to be paid correctly, right? So,
That's if you even get a job.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, I thought that this was it's really the core of the issue, perhaps, that
Mm,
discourages a lot of young people at a young age to take this route.
mhm,
Because yeah, why would I spend this many years
yeah,
studying for something that maybe doesn't go anywhere, right?
yeah.
So yeah, it is definitely difficult, but I think that you have really the right spirit, in the way that
I
you
hope they
handle
don't
it.
drain my spirit. I hope it doesn't drain
I
my
really
spirit.
hope they don't. I know that you're a third year architect and you're only 19, guys. Like, can you believe that? So you have already such a mature way to look at the world already, right? Um, but it is so important because I think that you really concentrate on yourself and what you want to achieve instead of giving energy to other people that think of it in a different way. So,
Mhm.
what kind of advice would you have for young people like yourself to push through, whether they are women, whether they are part of minorities, whether they are, a Muslim in white countries, and so on?
Mhm. I think the first thing that comes to mind is to, like, your difference is actually your strength. You know,
Yeah,
I I am different, and that's part of the reasons why I see the world differently. That's part of the reasons why I think differently and I talk differently and I act differently as well.
yeah,
So just channel that, you know, channel all the negative things people have told you and turn that into a strength and try to find the positive in that.
yeah,
And you will find that that could end up being something that fuels your dreams, and that could be something that propels you forward, with such a great momentum and such a greater force than people who just have it easy. Some people just, they woke up and there was food on the plate. They woke up
yeah,
and their mom made breakfast for them. I woke up and I had to make breakfast for mom. you know
yeah,
and you know, like, I basically wasn't born with a silver spoon, but that's part of why I am Aisha Janki, if that makes any sense. So just don't ever feel as though your difference is gonna bring you down. Yes, it might be harder, but those challenges will put you forward. Like,
yeah,
those challenges are things that, it's just part of life. You're gonna face challenges. Some of the challenges you face might be based on your identity and navigating these spaces that we're historically and institutionally not designed for people like you. You know,
Yeah.
it's I was looking at the history of architecture, and I was looking at the people that I was actually taught about, the people who were like the forefathers of architecture. Like, keyword here is forefathers, you
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I'm like, they're all men and they're
Yeah.
all mostly white, you know. The bit where they were even talking about African architecture, it was also white people. I'm like,
Going
you're
to,
talking
yeah.
about my continent, and you're not telling me about David Ajayi. You're not telling me about all the amazing things that my people are doing. It is always spoken of in the light of colonialism. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we had houses before they came and taught us how to design houses that doesn't even work for our climate and our context. No offense
Exactly.
taken, no offense intended. But like, they don't teach us that, you know? And I
Yeah.
felt quite let down because I'm like, this is supposed to be a global university. Like, why are we focusing too much on some and losing track on other aspects as well?
Yeah.
But just to summarize that point, your difference is your strength, and try to find the positivity in that. Try to use that to push yourself forward, right?
Yeah.
And that brings me to the next point, which is to find your voice. You know,
Mm.
I don't expect you to already know what you want to do or what kind of design you want to make in the future, but I think just having that dream that you're
Yeah.
working towards, that vague idea, which will become clear with time actually, you
Yeah.
know, because I still don't know what kind of buildings I want to design or what kind of architecture I want to do to be, but I know that but like with time I've come to find out, okay, I'm more interested in things that have to do with social justice. I'm more interested in this, I'm more interested in that. And with time you will figure it out, really. um but also just making sure that you've got the determination, you know, the dedication and the discipline. It's called the 3 Ds of success.
Mhm.
My dad kept telling me that, oh, Aisha, you need to make sure you have the 3 Ds. I'm like, Daddy, what is the 3 Ds you keep talking about? And he goes, determination, dedication, and discipline. And then he goes on and on and on about it. And I think with time, I've come to actually realize that's actually very, very
Yeah.
true, because you need to be determined, right? Before you can be dedicated and before you can apply the discipline, because they do come together.
Yeah.
Architecture is demanding, it's intense, but it's also fun, you know.
Of course.
It is so much fun. Like, the whole idea of getting to make things yourself, getting to watch a project like go from start to finish, you know, like you're actually going to be designing buildings, like you're going to
Yeah.
see the impact you're making physically. Like,
Yeah.
how cool is that? And I think that's part
Yeah.
of why it is harder. That's probably part of the justification for why it's a 7 year interns course,
Yeah.
because you're going to be designing buildings which have legal implications, which are going to affect people's lives, which are going to
Yeah.
affect the way people, which is going to affect people's mental health as well. So just making sure that it's something you actually want. If you don't have the passion for it, you you might end up dropping out. There are many people that have
Yeah.
dropped out, you know. You might end up just completely draining your energy and not being able to move
Yeah.
on anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Indeed, it's all about learning all the time.
Absolutely.
Also, a lot of graduates, that I've spoken with, they always wonder, okay, which job should I go for once I graduate, right? And I always say, like, try to figure out what you're interested in, what makes you curious, because that's where
Mm-hmm.
the passion comes, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can figure out what's your personal mission in this field. So it is extremely important what you say. We have
Absolutely.
Gregory Cohen has been sending a lot of links, so I will
Hi,
invite all
Greg.
of you to have a look. But he's asked a very pertinent question, saying that the architecture degree is very long, but maybe we can shrink that. What would
Hmm.
you leave out from your bachelor
Hmm.
course? Is
It's a
there
very
any
good
topics?
question. It's a very good question. I think that's probably something that I need to to have a think about and actually reflect on, because I haven't really thought about it that much. Um,
Yeah.
but I think they I feel like they don't really teach us much about life after architecture school. We're being taught with a curriculum that's been used, I think, for years and years, and it's like the world is changing. New issues are coming up. There's issues around sustainability. There's issues around diversity. Why don't we have a course that teaches us how to design buildings that are inclusive? Why don't we think about that are culturally sensitive as well? Why don't we have a course that teaches us about race in architecture school?
Yeah.
I think in masters, I found out that you can take that course, but it's not compulsory. I think this is something that should be embedded in the curriculum, because
Mhm.
that's what architects do, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so
Agreed.
I'm actually not too like I can't pinpoint what exactly needs to be out, but I think definitely there's more that needs to be done, and it's just a thing about trying to prioritize. Okay, what should uh what should an what should an architect in the nearest future, like what problems are we going to be facing, and trying to teach
Sure.
us to be able to solve those problems, and not be
Sure.
teaching us curriculum based on the problems of the past, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. We have a great question here. Um, she Jadra. Sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well.
Jadra,
I'm really
yeah, you're
bad.
far.
Um, what are your plans for the future after architecture school in terms of advocating more diversity and inclusivity? I love
That's
this
a
question.
very,
So,
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. So, this time last year, I actually had like a vision board that I mapped out for like what I want to do in the future and
mhm,
stuff. And I think one of the key things that I'm going to try to do is to be speaking about my experiences and to be sharing my experiences and to be at the table where some of these decisions gets made. So um if I'm looking for if I'm up, I might, but I might not. But I'm
mhm,
eyeing Reba. Reba looks like an interesting place that I might want to be. Like I might want to try and get a seat at the table and try to see how I can use my experiences to to advocate for like change from the bottom down. And
yeah.
like at the moment, I'm currently doing things in the grassroots level as well, trying to share my story on YouTube, trying to spread the word about people like me. Actually, fun fact, Google Black Muslim woman in architecture on YouTube, and there's actually a video about me on there. There wasn't actually anything when I went to search for that. So just trying to like
Yeah.
filling the gaps in places that I'm
Yeah.
missing. But definitely in the future, if I'm trying to find a job in the field of architecture and I don't see an industry that actually fully celebrates the values and the principles that I have, I like to set the pace for others to follow as well. And
Yeah.
I see myself like potentially starting a firm that's truly diverse and that's truly inclusive. So I'm talking about like pretty much everyone that has felt unseen and that has felt unheard, um, and that has struggled to find their place in the field of architecture. That firm would be a place where they can, come together and just like celebrate and thrive best. Because I feel like what the industry is currently missing is the fact that there's so much value in diversity, and there's so much more
Yeah.
we could do if we're actually trying to listen to each other, trying to
Yeah.
understand each other, and trying to hear the different ideas that we have, because that's what makes a project successful, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
um I've kind of put myself on the spot by just like sharing some of my personal goals in life, but I think part of me sharing it is me telling it to myself again, and also holding myself accountable. So Deidra, in the next 5 years, feel free to follow up on how I'm doing. Remind me, Aisha, you said this, because we tend to get caught up in life and things happen and you just lose track of some of the plans you had. But thanks for that question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We also have Mashed. Great talk. I think this is important to make it clear that as minorities, we are not after an easy path, but a fair one. Otherwise, we end up in the positive discrimination loop. That's very
Mm,
true. I don't know where you are in the world, but I can definitely relate to that issue. So, yeah, indeed. And we have one last question from Roy. How driven is sustainability in your role as an architect? It's a bit
mhm.
of a side
Yeah.
question.
So at some points, I actually updated my LinkedIn bio to say that I am a sustainable architecture and
And
enthusiast, but I
yeah.
ran out of word count, so I couldn't add that on. But I am very passionate about sustainability. I actually wrote a poem whilst I was at ASA. That was It's called Our World, and it's basically just about climate change and things like that.
Mm,
So like even from a very young age, I was aware of how bad the whole issue of climate change is getting, and the fact that people don't seem to be doing much about it. People don't seem to care about it.
yeah.
Um, so I am definitely, it's definitely top on my list. Like even
Yeah.
like we're in architecture school at the moment, for every project that I work on, I try to think, okay, what's the most sustainable way of doing this? And it's interesting that you talk about finance as well, and how inaccessible the field of architecture is.
Yeah.
I find that like trying to be more conscious of the way I make my models as well, and also what ends up happening to the models after I'm done presenting. Because
Mm,
what you find is like towards the end of the semester,
you
after
just throw it
they're
away.
done marking, it's just like loads of waste. And I'm like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
oh my God. It's just so much
Yeah, it's
paper, so
such
much card, so much like just things that are useful but are actually being wasted.
yeah.
So that's something that I'm quite conscious about, and that I try to embed in the work that I do as well. So not just sustainability in terms of like, because sustainability is very broad. There's
Mm,
financial sustainability, there's social sustainability, um there's different things as well, and I try to make sure that it's all
connected.
intertwined,
Yeah,
interconnected.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. I have one last question for you, and then I'll let you off off the hook. But you know, Africa as a continent, and more specifically, certain countries need a lot of architects. And what we find very often is, that that people go to study abroad and come to Europe or to the US to do their university, but then they sometimes they don't come back, right, to actually practice in their own country.
Yeah,
And instead, we have a lot of people from the outside that want to go to Africa to build, right?
it's
So,
like they know what you're talking about.
yeah, exactly. So,
they've,
um,
they've probably done their research and stuff, but it's like, can you really, like, do you actually what it's like to live in a building that's like very very hot? You know what I
exactly.
mean?
But not even only that. There was also a discussion on Clubhouse about the importance of community. So how can you build for a community that you
You don't
don't
even
know
know.
about, right? So that is also another point. But would you also take part in encouraging people to go back and
Mhm.
try to improve things over there, or are you more is it not something that you
Yeah.
think
Okay,
is
let me answer your
relevant?
question. Let me answer your
Okay.
question. Simply put, I did mention in my bio, um, when I was at ASA, that was when I actually decided that. So whilst I was at ASA, I said in the next 10 years, I am going to design the next iconic building in Africa, right? Um, it's 4 years down the line. I have 6 more years to try to reach that target. Wish me luck. Very, very ambitious, I know.
You will get there.
But
I am 100% sure. I have no doubt about that.
it will happen, because one thing I have learned is manifests. Is to
Yeah.
manifest things. Say it out loud. Look at myself in the front of the mirror, and tell myself, so that all the senses in the brain, they are listening, so that they are behaving themselves and actually doing the work. You understand? But basically, I definitely want to go back to Nigeria, and also to learn a bit more about the African continent in general. I'm heavily inspired by David Ajayi, architect David Ajayi. I yeah, that man is an icon, and I think it would be nice to see a woman as well doing amazing things like that in the field of architecture. So trying to walk in the footsteps of amazing African architects that are doing
Yeah.
amazing work globally. There's also this woman, I've forgotten her name, but yeah, I do know a
Yeah.
couple of people doing amazing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, absolutely, there's definitely a need for people of African descent to give back to their community, whether that be through just being a role model or going back to actually speak to people about things. After my first year in Edinburgh, I actually went back to my high schools. I attended two high schools in Nigeria, and I tried to like give a presentation. It was kind of like a TED talk,
Yeah.
but it was more chilled. It was like, "Hi guys, remember me? Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah,
Take
I was sitting
notes."
there, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm a huge part of the work I do is to be conscious of passing the baton, and to making sure that it is actually a sustainable growth.
Yeah.
Being the first is good, but it's not entirely sustainable if there aren't more that follow your footstep, if you don't leave a
Sure.
legacy that others can follow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm definitely conscious of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank
I think
you.
that everybody enjoyed this talk. I think
Aw.
you gave some great insight, and I really love your story, and I am 100% sure that you're gonna nail every single goals that you set yourself to do. And I'm very happy to have met you actually. So thank you for coming on the live with me, and on the podcast that will be available on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And then I was just wondering, where can people find you to know more about you and to see your videos
Ooh.
and so on?
So guys, speaking about leaving a digital footprint and that,
Yeah,
I'm literally on pretty much every social media platform. I'm gonna see if I can leave a comment on there. I don't think I
yeah.
can comment. I can't leave a
Can
comment, but
you?
if someone would be kind enough to write it in the comment
Yeah, I
section,
can. I
just
can
so
try
other
to
people
write
can.
it.
Okay, cool,
Go ahead.
fabulous. So I am on YouTube
Yeah,
as Aisha Janki. So just like the name on there, but just without the
it's
surname.
great. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm on
Yeah.
YouTube as Aisha Janki. Just Google Aisha Janki on YouTube, and I should come up. First, if the algorithm doesn't try to play dirty. Um, and on Instagram. So on Instagram, I am working towards being like, so on So I try
So
to
complicated.
compartmentalize my life, right? And that reflects on my social media as well. On LinkedIn, it's just my professional stuff. Okay, y'all are probably thinking that I'm already an architect designing buildings with the way that I talk on LinkedIn, right? That's because that's my personal brand on LinkedIn, right? On social media, on Instagram, I I am a blogger, fun, right? And I basically blog on fashion, beauty, and wellness as well. And it's Aisha_Janki. How did you know that? Thank
I
you.
just checked, I can
Ooh.
multitask. I'm a woman.
Yeah, so that's my Instagram. This is my LinkedIn. Make sure to check out my profile. Follow me. I post content every week that seek to inspire, motivate, and educate as well. So make sure to follow me. Yeah.
I will.
What else? Have I missed anything? Twitter, I'm not very active, so don't worry about Twitter.
Don't bother. Yeah, don't bother. And for everybody else that wants to find us, we are the IBD Hub. We help either architects who want to start their own firm, and we also just launched a program called Digital Business Development, which you can find on our website. And it is about how to find clients for your architecture practice online through social media platforms. So yeah,
Yeah.
just find us as well. Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you so much for all the ones that participated in the comments and that have been watching as well. We will come back next week with another adventure and another topic. And I see you soon. Bye.